And does doing the 2 pictures in between prepare you to jump back into the giant machinery of doing a 4th movie?
Yeah, it's great, and
I'm going to try and return to the central core of the character that I fell in love with. And in that way, I'll try and make it better. Try and make it the best of the bunch.
how do we press this? How do we make it more exciting, more fun? How do we evolve the character and make it a rich story?
Well, I don't know if it'll be bigger and better. I think I'm going to try and make it smaller and worse.
Meet your new Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield.
And that's how The Amazing Spider-Man came to be. Obviously, a lot of Spidey Raimi fanboys were obviously not looking forward to this movie, thinking it was not going to be as good or even better as the Raimi Spider-Man movies, not even close. But when we got words from Andrew Garfield, him saying stuff like this,
I needed Spidey in my life when I was a kid.
there was definitely a lot more hope for this movie. But it was still just okay. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Great Ones channel, and welcome back to a little Spider-Man movie review series. And the Spidey movie I'm reviewing today is completely different compared to the Raimi Spider-Man movies. This is a completely different thing, new cast members, new director, completely different crew. It is known to be the untold story of all Spider-Man movies. The untold story, totally, yeah. And it's also known to be the darkest Spider-Man movie of all time. Yes, this is the more darker than the Raimi Spider-Man movies. Yeah, we're going Dark Knight level shit here. Yeah, that's actually what they were trying to do, I think. And the movie is The Amazing Spider-Man. Like I just said, this movie was heavily marketed as the untold story of Spider-Man. This is going through a story that has never been told before in a live-action movie, and that's what drove people to be really excited about this movie. You know, it seemed like it was going for a more darker approach, which seemed a little bit weird, but it was the untold story, so that's what drove people to be pretty excited about this movie. And I'm not kidding, like, look at this poster right here. It's all looking really dark. It's like a really dark poster for Spidey, and then you got the tagline saying the untold story. Oh my god. But it wasn't. It wasn't. It was just the classic Spider-Man story being told all over again. Bitten by a spider. Uncle Ben gets shot. Responsibility. Spidey. But what did I overall think of The Amazing Spider-Man? What did I think of this movie? Well, unfortunately, it really wasn't amazing. But it was okay. It was okay. That there are things that I do kind of like about this movie. It was okay. So it wasn't too bad. It's not an amazing movie, but it was okay. There are stuff that I do kind of like about this movie. So let's start talking about the characters. Andrew Garfield taking the role of Peter Parker, and he does a pretty good job in this movie portraying this character. Like the clip I just shown, he clearly has a lot of passion for this character, for the character of both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. He loves this character. He's clearly a massive fan, and it shows in this movie. He had a great time making this movie and playing this character, and he just has so much love, and he wants to make all the Spider-Man fans proud. It clearly shows in this movie, and he did a really good job. And another thing that Andrew does a really good job with is the awkwardness of Peter Parker. Seriously, there's one scene of, Peter trying to start some sort of conversation with Gwen Stacy, and he's struggling of what to say. He doesn't know what to say, and it's just really awkward. Has no clue what to say. And when there's a scene when he's having dinner with Gwen's family, he doesn't really know how to cut up his fish, and one of Gwen's little brothers come up to help him, and he feels kind of awkward about it. Just little scenes like those that just show the awkward side of Peter Parker, which I really liked and I can kind of relate to because I'm a bit of an awkward person myself. So he wasn't as likable. I wouldn't say he was as likable as Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. In this movie, he's a little bit different. He likes to ride skateboards, apparently, which is very random. So that's a thing, I guess. He's very different. He's not as likable, but Andrew Garfield does a good job portraying the character. And he's not a bad Peter Parker. He's actually pretty damn good. Other characters like Gwen Stacy being portrayed by Emma Stone, she does a pretty good job in this movie, and obviously, improvement compared to Kristen Dunst's performance as MJ in the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is that Gwen does stuff. She actually does stuff. She helps Spider-Man in situations, and she actually legitimately does stuff. She helps instead of just going like this. all the time. Seriously, it was really relieving to see that. And she like one scene of like Spider-Man's about to get he's getting his head crushed by the lizard, and then she whacks the shit out of the lizard with like a chair. And it was just overall great to see Gwen just being useful in this movie and just getting to do stuff. Other than that, there's nothing really too special about her character. That's really it. She's just kind of helping Spider-Man in situations, and she's got a family, and it's really it. There's nothing too special about her character, but she's still really good. Emma Stone did a good job playing the character, and she was good. She was good. She worked for me. There are some minor characters in the movie. Well, not really minor. We got Captain Stacy in this movie, who does play a bit of a big part in this movie. He's in the movie a lot. I don't know the actor's name, but he does a really good job in this movie. The character of Captain Stacy is pretty good. He's not very memorable, but he's pretty good. And the guy who plays him does a really good job. And yeah, it's kind of like little minor characters here and there, but it's just kind of focused on Gwen and Peter. But now let's start talking about the villain. The Lizard is the main villain in this movie, and with the character of Dr. Connors, he's got a missing arm and he's trying to figure out a way to grow it back, which he does, but then leads to him turning into the Lizard and then creating a bunch of chaos and then wanting the whole city of New York to become lizards as well, to be like him. And that's really it. Yeah, that's it. That's the motherfucking Lizard. Yeah, not a very interesting villain. Yeah, he wasn't really anything too special, not very interesting, and yeah, I was never really into this villain. He was kind of one of the more forgettable Spider-Man villains in all the live-action movies. With his design in this movie, it's obviously not fully accurate to how he originally looked in the comics and all that. As you can clearly tell, it's not fully accurate, but it's kind of grown on me. I don't mind the look of him in this movie. I know a lot of you guys probably hate it. It's grown on me, so I'm kind of just like, it's fine, I guess. It's not fully accurate. It could have looked better, but it's fine, I guess. Sure. With the Lizard, he really was not an interesting character, and with Dr. Connors, he also wasn't even all that interesting. Yeah, he has a missing arm. Oh, that's so investing. He has a few scenes with this Indian guy talking about Norman Osborn, who we don't even see until the second movie. Just all this stuff, and he wasn't really an interesting villain, and honestly, it was kind of disappointing, and he was just very forgettable. But he does end up in some really, really cool action scenes with Spider-Man, and that's what I'm going to get into now, the action scenes. I love the action in this movie, and in the second movie, but we'll talk more about that later. I love the action scenes in these movies. The first one in this is really, really good. The CGI looks really good on the Lizard. It looks really good. Everything, all the CGI, the special effects with the fight scenes all look so good. Like, for an example, the school fight. That looks freaking awesome. The CGI looks good. It's such a fun action scene. And it's just, I love the action in this movie. It looks really cool. It's not my favorite action scenes, I wouldn't say, but they're really good in this movie. And with the CGI blending in, it looks really good. I like the action scenes in this movie. They are really, really good. Yeah. There are two characters that I forgot to talk about, Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Yes, I'm reviewing a motherfucking Spider-Man movie, and I forgot to talk about those two. What is wrong with me? But about Uncle Ben in this movie being played by Martin Sheen, who is Charlie Sheen's brother, he clearly does do the best he can with his performance, portraying this character. He does do a good job with his performance. And I do like how Peter and Uncle Ben have a little bit more scenes together. Unlike the original Spider-Man movie with Peter and Uncle Ben, they didn't really have a lot of scenes together. This movie, they try to have more scenes together, which I really appreciate them for doing. I like that. But nonetheless, he still, even though he was in it briefly, Uncle Ben in the original Spider-Man movie just felt a little bit more likable than this one that he's in, this Uncle Ben in this movie. The performance is good. It's not too bad, but yeah, it's just this Uncle Ben. I mean, he's not particularly bad. He's not really as likable compared to the original Spider-Man movie. He's not bad. He's just okay. But yeah, I don't know. It was just seeing him get shot again was just that was good to see. It was great to see that again. But yeah, Uncle Ben in this movie was okay. And about Aunt May being played by Sally Field. Not my favorite Aunt May. She was probably my least favorite. She's probably my least favorite Aunt May in all these live-action Spider-Man movies. She obviously the Raimi Spider-Man movies. Aunt May is clearly the best and perfect portrayal of Aunt May. And the MCU Spider-Man movies, at least, for what they did with her in Far From Home was very unforgivable. There was this likability side to her in Homecoming that I liked. But with this Aunt May, she worries a lot, which is good. That's what Aunt May does, is worry about Peter all the time. But she worries a lot, and where And her relationship with Peter, I just can't really feel it in this movie. You know, she just worries a lot, and she just worries way too much that I can't really just feel this relationship between her and Peter, and it's just pretty much nothing in this movie, which was disappointing. So I don't really like this Aunt May. I've never been a big fan of this Aunt May, and I just yeah. And possibly the most disappointing thing about this movie is that this is no untold story. This is legit the 2002 Spider-Man movie being retold again in this movie. The classic Spider-Man story being retold in this movie, and just in a less fun way. It's just the way it was done in this movie was okay. It just wasn't as fun as the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man with the way they did it. And like with the lighting in this movie, I know they were maybe trying to go for a more darker approach with Spider-Man or something. I don't know what they were trying to do, but the lighting in this movie, what the hell? There's like no color or anything to this movie. It's such bland lighting. Yeah, so that's one thing I have to say. I look at the lighting and it just looks like nothing. I see no colors because Spider-Man's such a colorful character, and I see none of that with the lighting. It looks really weird. And I know they were trying to go for a more darker approach, kind of like with the Dark Knight movies being so popular back then, you know, getting so much great, being praised so much. Maybe they wanted to do the same thing with Spider-Man, and it just didn't fully work with them trying to go for a more darker approach and being disclosed as the untold story, even though it's literally just the same story, classic Spider-Man story being told all over again. It was super disappointing. Really, the whole untold story thing about Peter's parents isn't really said until the next movie, the second movie. So excited to talk about that. This movie may be retelling the classic Spider-Man story all over again, but there are some things you can like about this movie. Some good performances, some decent characters, some really cool action scenes, and there are stuff you can like about this movie, but unfortunately, this just isn't my Amazing Spider-Man. And would I recommend you guys check out The Amazing Spider-Man? I know probably all of you or some of you have already seen the movie, but if you haven't, if you're really invested with how this movie looks, then I'd say go check it out. But if you really don't care of how this movie is portrayed and looking and marketing and all that, then I honestly say give this a big skip. There is not much of a reason to go check out this movie. There really isn't. This movie is trying to explain the Peter's parents' story in a little way that's not really explained all that well. if I just simply say, if you're not really interested in this movie, skip it. I wouldn't really recommend it if you're not interested at all with this movie. If you are interested, check it out. If you're not, then don't watch it. I give it a big skip. So that's really all I have to say about this movie. It's a decent movie. It's got some good stuff in it, but it's just okay. This is going to be the end of my review of The Amazing Spider-Man. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment down below what you guys thought of The Amazing Spider-Man. And yeah, we are almost to the end of this Spider-Man movie review series, because up next is The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I guess I'm excited to talk about the action scenes in the movie, the amazing action scenes. I'm excited to talk about the truly amazing new suit. Yeah, that's it.